Hi guys, John the Firearms Instructor, and welcome back to our channel. I'm glad you're here. If you're new to the channel, my name is John Johnson. I own and operate a firearms training facility down in Southwest Florida. We're a gun store, gun range, and training facility all in one place, which specializes in new students. If you're one of our loyal subscribers, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. It means so much to us. You guys have really stepped up and start liking a bunch of our videos, and we're getting our watch hours up higher and higher and higher. We're almost at 3,000 watch hours. We're like a couple of hours off of that. That helps us get into that little bit of store availability for our t-shirts and things like that. It allows us to do some other stuff, and obviously the 4,000 hours gets us into the monetization. Now, I'm not doing this for monetization as much as it's something I love and I enjoy. It's my passion, and we do this videos for you guys as much as we do it for ourselves. I want to get my information. I want to educate. I want to entertain. I want to do all that stuff for you guys. Thank you very much. So today we're going to go into something that happened to me yesterday. So yesterday I had a class, and I had a woman in class that asked a bunch of questions. And that's good. If she was asking questions, she wanted to learn. But what I realized, that I was talking over her head. Sometimes I say things that I think everyone understands. And I basically was being the instructor yesterday, not thinking about the students. I tell you all the time, students teach me more than I teach them sometimes when it comes to, I learn so much from a student. I'm an NRA instructor, and I am a United States Concealed Carry Association instructor, and those are credentials, guys. But sometimes as an instructor, I need to dumb it down to a point where anybody can understand that. And I think I learned a lot from that lady yesterday, because after I explained everything, she got it, and she was using those terms I was giving her yesterday. But in the beginning, I need to realize that some of these people who are coming to classes have never shot a pistol before in their life. So I apologized to her yesterday, and I thought, you know, this would make a great video, because I'm not talking about one of our loyal subscribers that's been shooting for a long period of time. I'm talking to you. The first person who's hit this video today that's thinking about, don't even own a pistol, is thinking about starting out. And it's intimidating. I have new students every week, and they get all like combobulated. They're all nervous. They think the gun's going to do something it's not going to do. So I think we need to go through a bunch of stuff today, but it's all going to be tied together in what a firearm is and what a firearm isn't. So let's talk about that first. If you're thinking to yourself, and I have one question for you, what if I pointed at the firearm? Now this is a dummy gun, guys, so there's no live rounds in this. It can't rack the slide. You can't do anything with it. But this is what we like to use when we're doing these videos, because I may be pointing this weapon at the camera, and my son's behind the camera making sure I look pretty all the time. And at that point in time, we need to make sure that he's in a safe environment as well. I don't like pointing even a plastic gun at him. He's never in the way when I'm pointing the weapon, but it's still a plastic piece, so it's not going to hurt anybody or anything else like that. So what I want to get to you right off the bat is I'm going to ask you one question. What is this? Don't say a plastic gun. I already said that. Let's say it was a firearm. It had a magazine in. People assume that this is a deadly weapon. And you're probably shaking your head. Yeah, John, it's a deadly weapon. Is a firearm really a deadly weapon? I'm going to ask you two questions. Can it load itself? Can it pull its own trigger? If we loaded this, set it on a table, and no one touched it for 100 years, would it still be empty? Would it still be live? Would it still be ready to go? Yeah. So what you think about a firearm as a tool? And a tool needs to be operated by a craftsman, which is you. Let's start there right off the bat. A firearm is a tool and needs to be ran by a tool. So there's a mantra I give all my students, and I want you to remember it. I run the tool doesn't run me. Go ahead and say it. I run the tool doesn't run me. That's important, guys. All right? So now that we have that out of the way, I want to go through some it's weapon safety rules. And most of the time, the handgun safety rules start with when you pick the weapon up. Now, if you've noticed so far, I've never put my finger on this trigger yet. I've had it on the side of the weapon, but I've never put it in the trigger guard itself, all right? So, I'm going to start out with a real simple one. The number one handgun rule of all handgun rules is, do you know it? Do you think you know it? I know some of our subscribers know it, but I'm going to tell you this right now. Treat the weapon as if it's always loaded. Because what's imperative we need to understand is that a semi-automatic pistol with the magazine in or the magazine out will fire, guys. There are a few manufacturers that have what's called a magazine disconnect. When we take this magazine out, it would kill the trigger. But don't assume that ever. So, if we assume the weapon is always loaded, where's our finger not going to be? It's not going to be on the trigger. What are we not going to point the weapon at? Anything we love and don't want to destroy. We're always going to keep the weapon pointed downrange. Now, downrange is one of those situations where if you're dry firing in your home, or you have a weapon in your house, or you're at the range, the backstop is the downrange, right? So when you're at the range and you're shooting, you never want to put the gun down sideways. You want to always point it downrange. And the last one would be know your target and what's beyond. Know your target and what's beyond. So I'm going to have John zoom in here real quick, and I'm going to go through them one more time with you, and I think this is important. If you have a pad and a pencil, you want to write this down. All right, you could go to the internet and get this stuff all the time. If you look up handgun safety rules, number one is treat the firearm as it's always loaded. Right there, guys, begins everything. If you kind of get the idea of that. Mind camera, John?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so the idea of this is treat the firearm as always loaded. If the firearm is always loaded, where's your finger not going to be? On the trigger. Number two would keep your finger off the trigger. Pointing the weapon downrange. Now, we have made this down here downrange today because Johnny is down on this direction, and I don't want to turn this weapon towards him. So I've pointed it this direction. Point the weapon in a safe direction. Never point the weapon at anything you love and don't want to destroy. And know your target and what's beyond. Let's talk about know your target and what's beyond, because this is where the rubber hits the road a little bit, guys. If you're concealed carrying, you're responsible for your bullet until it hits the ground. And this is imperative. That's why we spend so much time at the range making sure the weapon impacts where we're aiming. We've done a bunch of drills in the last couple of weeks working on our accuracy, because the important piece of knowledge here is if you're shooting at the target and it's shooting to low left or low right, and you adjust because you keep shooting that high. So say you shoot low and left and you raise your weapon up high and right to impact the target. That's not the way to learn to shoot, guys. Because that one time that you don't engage a trigger crazy, which is most of the time what's causing all those manipulations, that bullet's going to go in that direction, and you're responsible for it. What that bullet hits, maims, hurts, kills, or paralyzes, you're criminally, morally, and civilly responsible for. Right? So we want to be very careful, especially in the concealed carry world. Make sense? Hope so. So, number two, let's go through some definitions of the weapon itself. And this is kind of why I would do this, because yesterday when I was telling the lady to rack the slide, she had no idea what I was talking about. Now, of course, I demonstrated it, but I demonstrated it fast and she didn't catch it. This is the problem with doing single classes and being nervous. When you're nervous, when you're in a single class and you're doing the class by yourself, you've got nothing bouncing off any other student in here. So that's always why I recommend group classes, because they help out tremendously. You're going to get probably 30% of what I give you in a single class, where in a group class you can get 40 to 45%. So let's go through some definitions today. John, can you see this? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to put my hand like this because I want to kind of give you an overall view. Good in level there?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
good.
All right, so let's start up top. What do we call this right here? This is called the slide, all right? Now, in a real situation, we're going to pull this back to put a bullet in and to take a bullet out, all right? And when you engage the trigger, this slide comes back, ejects a casing, and strips another one off the magazine. On top of your slide is a pair of sights. And we always ask how many sights are on this gun, because technically this is not a sight without this. And this is not a sight without this. I'm going to bring this to the camera and kind of show you. Your job is to put this dot into the void here. Now help me see if I can level that out. So you can kind of get an idea. Unfortunately, the yellow dots,
You can see it really well.
don't have dots on them, but there'd be a dot in a box, and that's your sighting system. Every firearm has some kind of sighting system. This is called a sight. The two of them together are sights, but uniquely, the side rails are a sight as well. I can actually turn the gun sideways and use the rail assembly to point the gun as well. Not gangsta, but here you could side rail it, all right? So there is the slide. That mechanism goes back and forth when we're engaging a weapon. It moves so fast you can hardly see it. If you look back here, there are ridges, and those ridges are designed to be a grab to hold to. When you want to rack the slide, you pull it back and let it go. When you load the weapon, pull it back, let it go. All right. From there, there is a button right here. This is called slide lock. And basically what happens, I could pull this back and lift this up, and it'll lock the gun in the slide lock position. There's takedowns on both sides. This is a knockoff of a Glock 17, I think. This is a magazine drop. They're all in the same spot, guys. No matter if it's Smith, Taurus, Ruger, Glock, they're all in the same. Walther has a little weird European thing down here, but most of them are slide drop. This is your handle or frame. This bottom piece is called the frame, and it's the whole thing. Up front here, this piece right here is where a flashlight could go or a laser could go. It clicks into there. Obviously, this front piece is called the barrel. Below here is your magazine. You take your magazine drop your magazine in your hand, load your magazine back up, stick it in the weapon, and rack the slide. That's imperative. People tend to not know all the terminology or the nomenclatures of a firearm. Pretty simple. Let's talk about what this is. This is your trigger guard, and this is your trigger. So I'm going to turn the other way and kind of give you a view. Good, John?
Yep.
So the idea of this is you never want to cover or hover in here. When we pick the weapon up and we talk about this, I've talked about it a couple times, we make a you get it?
Yeah.
We make a weapon, make a gun to pick up a gun. And then we pick that up. We're going to keep our finger off that trigger. We want to be upstairs. That's important. Because the more we slide down with the hand, the more chances we are that we could slip into there. We don't want to be in there until we're ready to engage. And then as we lay that hand on there, we will always want to make sure that our finger is off the trigger and it stays there until we're ready to engage the target. Once we engage the target, we shoot our 5 shots, 10 shots, or whatever you're going to do. And then your finger goes off there. You bring it back up into your body. You check the weapon because this will be in a slide lock position, which means this will be back. And the magazine itself will show up top here. That'll be empty. Then you take your magazine out. And you put another magazine in. Pull back. And you're back into the gunfight. So I think what we've talked about today is a lot. I think it's imperative that you know it. I think this will help you tremendously when you start getting into thinking about going to the range and shooting. These are all things we need to know. All right? So as we talked about it before, we've got the weapon loaded. Now, how do we unload it properly? Unloading is just as important as loading, but I want to give you an acronym today, which is called DROP, D-R-O-P. If we're going to unload a semi-automatic pistol, the very first thing we need to do is take the life out of it. And where is the life of the gun? It is not the bullets. It is not the weapon. It is the magazine, because the magazine feeds the weapon. So you're going to remove the magazine. Then you're going to drop the magazine. You're going to rack the slide a couple times, 3 or 4 times. You're going to physically check the weapon. You're going to open it by putting it in slide lock, and then physically check the weapon. D-R-O-P can save your life for someone you love. It's very important to get your head around that. You know how to load it. You load the magazine up, stick the magazine, and rack the slide. Now you want to unload it, you drop it. D-R-O-P. Guys, if you find anything we did today helpful, please comment below and let us know. Secondary, let us know what you're looking for as far as videos. Sometimes we kind of look at our comments and do videos because of those. So we'd love to have your comments about everything that we do here, the good ones and the bad ones. Well, sometimes we get some pretty nasty stuff, but you got to have thick skin if you're going to be on camera, right? So until next time, guys, God bless, be safe, and remember, you are your first line of defense. Guys, I'd love to hear from you newbies. Tell us why you're trying to get your weapon, or what's holding you back from getting your firearm and going to class and learning everything. Until next time, I love you guys.